Hello, Eric Larson here with another video about solid modeling using AutoDesk Fusion. This is a video about bowl-shaped objects. And first we have to say that Fusion is a trademark of Autodesk Incorporated. It's a great product. I get a lot of work done with it. I like it. So we've got other videos in the series, but this one is about bowls and how to design them. And a bowl is a really good thing to make on a 3D printer because it fits very easily into your build printer envelope, and you'll get something useful even if it might not be exactly what you want. You can always make another one. So I'm going to show several different ways of creating a bowl-shaped object using Fusion, and then we can print them using 3D printing. And we'll start with the simplest way, and that's usually the best way. And I can show you some other ways which can allow for something more sophisticated. I will also show the sequence of operations needed to create the object using a slicing program and a 3D printer. This will probably be redundant if you've seen some of my other videos, so you can gloss over that if you already know how to do those things. So, the simplest way to create a bowl is to create a cylinder using Fusion in 3D mode, and then cut out the interior using an extrude cut. And you can also do it using two concentric circles and extrude the inner circle to form the bottom of the bowl, and then extrude another profile to make the sides. And there's another way to do it by extruding a cylinder and then drawing a cylinder on the top and extrude cut into that to create the interior space. All of these methods are roughly equivalent, and you can choose between them based on what you like. So we'll jump into Fusion and see how to do. Okay, here we are in Fusion. So we start in Fusion when we enter in a 3D mode. We'll pull down Create and say Create a cylinder. And I want to create it on the it says select a plane or a planar face. I'm going to select the XZ plane. Okay, place the center point. There it is. Specify the diameter. I'm going to type in 75, so that will give us a bowl that isn't too large. I'm going to say I want it to be 50 tall, and we'll say OK for a new body. There's our cylinder. If we click on the top and then say create a sketch, we'll create a sketch on the top. We will create a center diameter circle centered on the origin. We want that to be, okay, and we'll say D for diameter or D for dimension. I want that to be 55. Okay, finish the sketch. Okay, so now we have our cylinder. If we select this interior profile and then say create, extrude, and our operation will be cut. And then we will come down here. Let's cut down to -45. Okay, and you can see that we've created something that's pretty simple here. But it's roughly bowl-shaped. It's cylindrical, and it's pretty easy. Now that was fairly fast, and it was simple. So let's show another way to do it. Here we are. Let's select again the XZ plane. We will say create a sketch. Okay, we can create a center diameter circle of diameter. Let's say that we want 75. I'll type in 75 here. Hit enter. Okay, that's pretty good. Let's create another center diameter circle of diameter, let's say we want that one to be 60. That's pretty good. We finished the sketch. Okay, now if we select this, we can turn off the origin. Okay, if we select the center, we will do E for extrude. In this case, let's go up 5. And that creates the base of our our bowl. Now we will select the outer profile, hit and say create, extrude, and we instead of saying new body, we want to say join, because we only want to have one body at the end of this, and we'll take it up to 50. There we go. So if we now go back to the orbit tool, we can orbit around this and see that we've created something that was very much equivalent to what we had before. So, or what we had with the previous effort. We will say don't save, and I'll show you very quickly a last way of doing this. If we create a sketch, create a center diameter circle, come out to 75, and if we finish the sketch, okay, we select the whole thing, E for extrude, bring it up to 50. Now we're in the same spot that we were when we created the cylinder, except we created the cylinder using a 2D and extrude process as opposed to creating it in 3D. And if we click on here, create sketch, and then create another circle of diameter 55, and now finish the sketch, and we can click here, say E for extrude, say we will do extrude cut, and extrude cut it down to -45. Okay, there we are. And you can see that we have very quickly created a bowl using 3 different methods. Okay, I'm going to go back to the slides. Okay, here we are back in our slides. So we saw the 3 different ways. All right, so revolve is a much better way of creating bowls. And so everything we've done so far has been making kind of primitive cylindrical bowls. But you might want something that is more funnel shaped rather than a simple cylinder. So to do that, the best way is to revolve, and the simplest revolve will create a cylindrical bowl, and it will be the same as what we've created. And we will show how to round off the edges and also make some non-cylindrical bowls using revolve. Okay, back in Fusion, I've selected the XY plane in this case. I'm going to create a sketch on that plane. The simplest thing to do is to start with a line tool. We will draw a line out to here, up to here, over to here, down to here, back to here, and back to the start. And then we will hit enter, and you can see that we've created a closed profile. We can finish the sketch. Now if we select this profile and pull down create, revolve, we've already got the profile selected. All we have to do is select the y-axis, and wow, there it goes. It revolved all the way around and created a bowl. And instead of saying 360, we might have said 270. That gives us a partial bowl, which, it's just kind of interesting to see what that looks like. But it's not really what we want. We want 360. 360. Okay, there we go. So that's a very quick way to create a bowl. So another way, if we say don't save, okay, we can also create a sketch where we have something that is not cylindrical. And let's say that we did something like this. Okay, there's another closed profile. Finish the sketch. Back to here, we select a profile, say create revolve, select the axis, and there we go. We have a pretty good looking bowl here, and it's not this is something you might it's a bowl for panning gold or something in the Sierras of California. So that was quick. Now, if instead of now we might say that if we edited this, and instead of saying that these kind of angular things, let's try to round things off a little bit. And instead of saying 5, let's say 7. Okay, and if we try to round this one, we'll use our fillet tool here, and we'll say let's make this one 7 as well. And no, I bet we can, yeah, that should be pretty nice. Okay, finish the sketch, and you can see that this has created a much nicer, you can see that this is a much nicer looking bowl here. And if we turn off the sketches and the origin, now this is actually starting to be something that you might actually like. You know, you might actually use this. So I think that's pretty good. All right. Okay, so we talked about revolve and we showed how to do that. Let's jump to the next discussion, which is about sweep. So sweep allows us to make some very interesting bowls, and especially if you want something that is not inherently circular. So you may need to see an earlier video to really fully understand the concept of sweeping, and I'm going to assume that you do. Or, you know, just go back and watch it. I forget what number it is. It's about number 4 or 5 in the series. So the simplest sweep is to sweep our simple profile around a circular path. And this is equivalent to revolve, and it produces an identical result. But a more complicated sweep would follow a non-circular path, and this can create a rectangular bowl. So let's see how to do that. So here we are back in Fusion. You can see that I've selected the XZ plane. We will create a sketch on that plane. And this will be, and what we want to do is create a 2-point rectangle where the rectangle is is not perfectly centered on the origin. Okay, and we can say finish that. Actually, before we go too far, let's fillet these corners, and we'll take that at 20. We'll take that at let's do the same thing, 20. Okay, fillet, 20, fillet, 20. Okay, finish the sketch. Okay, and I'm gonna name this sketch, and it will be called the path sketch. Okay, and if we go back to our kind of 3D view, let's now select the YZ plane, and we will create a profile sketch. And in this case, it will be a 2-point rectangle, and it will be centered on the origin. And also, let's do a quick fillet job on that. Yeah, 5 looks pretty good, and we'll do the same thing here. Okay, finish the sketch. Okay, so now you can see that we have both our path and our profile sketch. I'm going to name this one profile to help us keep track of what we're doing. Okay, so if we now select this profile and say create sweep, it will say the profile is already selected, and now all we have to do is select the path. And if we click here, wahoo! Okay, so now you can see that it is created a non-circular enclosed surface. And if let's turn off the bodies and turn on the path sketch. If we select that and say E for extrude, and let's take that up to let's say we want that to be 5, new body. Okay, and now we'll turn on the bodies. Okay, that's pretty good. Turn off the sketches, and now you can see that that is a usable bowl-shaped object. It won't leak. You know, if you wanted to feed a big dog, or fill it with water or something, you would now have a usable bowl created using sweep. Okay, back in the slides. This is what sweep was all about. All set, all done with that. Okay, you can also create a nice bowl using an arc. And I think we use the combination of arc, offset, and revolve to make what I think would be your most typical bowl shapes. And it's also possible to use splines to make an even more complicated shape. But that's a little bit more complicated, and we're going to skip it for now. So let's pop over to Fusion and see how to use arcs. Okay, back in Fusion, I've again selected the XY plane. We will create a sketch on that plane. And our first thing is to create the bottom of the bowl using a very simple rectangle. And now if we want to say create arc, I want a 3-point arc. I'm going to start this arc here. I'm going to come up to here, and I'm going to say, that's about where I want that arc to be. All right, we hit enter. Where's my enter key? Okay, enter. And now we want to use the offset command to come offset from that. And I want that to be offset 10. Oh, hang on a second. All right, 10, 1, 0. Okay, that's pretty good. Offset 10. Now we want to try and close that profile. So we will create a line from here to here, and we will say that we are done. Okay, hit enter. All right, now this is kind of a good example of something where we kind of expected to have a closed profile, but it's not. And if we zoom in, we can see that this is where the problem starts. So what we want to do is use our constraint tool. Say constraint coincident. We want this point to be coincident with that point. Okay. Now you can see that we have a closed profile because this profile has turned blue. We can finish the sketch. Go back to a 3D view. If we select this profile and then hold down the control key to also select this one, and if we say create revolve, select our y-axis, there we go. Now we have what is probably the most classic bowl, so far. That if we turn off the origin, turn off the sketches, that's probably the most typical bowl. This looks more like what you expect than almost any other bowl that we've made so far. And it's pretty easy. It's got it's just got one body. We're going to name this body bowl. Okay, so I type here BOWL. Okay, and now the other thing that I might want to do, if I right click and say appearance, I want to give this a little bit of color. It's just kind of boring to not have any colors. Yeah, server verification. Yeah. Okay, I click on my favorites. I slide down here. I see that I have my favorite green, and because I have green filament, a lot of the things I make are actually green in color. So, all right. So now we've got our bowl. And what I want to do is just very rapidly run through the sequence of what you would do if you wanted to 3D print this. So I select the bowl, I pull down the file menu, I click 3D print. My application has already been set up to use Cura. I'm going to use 3MF format. Everything is set. My OK button is working. I clicked OK, and it'll take a minute or two to bring up Cura. You can kind of see this little. Our cursor is giving us a clue that Cura is starting up. I hope it works because there we go. Okay, good. Here's Cura. Cura sometimes is not the fastest software in the world to start, but it really works fairly well, and the price is right. It's free. So, what we will see is that when Cura is fully initialized, we will see the opportunity to print this object. And if you already know how to do this, you can probably skip ahead in the video or let your mind wander for the next minute or two. All right, so, okay, I was kind of expecting to see Cura launch there, but it didn't for some reason. And sometimes this happens. All right, we're going to try again. Pull down File, 3D Print. Okay, Object Select. Okay, we've selected it. We hit OK. Sometimes it starts faster on the second try. And I don't know quite why that is, but maybe some things are in a cache or something. Okay, here we go. Here's Cura. All right, and this looks kind of ugly. I don't quite know what's going on with this. All right, so if we say arrange all models, okay, I don't quite understand why. All right, we will then go. Okay, sorry. Here, let me try and bring down. Let me try and bring. Well, anyway, we'll say select all models. Let's try to rotate it and see if we can make it. There we go. Okay. All right. Well, let's there should be a way to make this okay, let's try again here. Let's pick it up. Nope, that didn't work. So we need to try and rotate it. Lie flat. There we go. That might be more like what we want. Okay. And let's look at it from the side. Well, anyway, this is a fairly typical problem that you. Oh, there we go. That's pretty good. There. Okay, that's what we wanted. Okay, and now if we look at it from this angle, you can see that our object is in the build envelope. It's showing us what we want. If we look at what we've got here in terms of infill, we'll make this at 20% density. We do need support, and so we want we'll take these settings. Okay, and if we say slice, unable to slice, it's probably because we're not fitting within the build volume. Let's try again here. Let's say select all models. Okay, well, what we're probably doing is trying to build something which is too big to fit. And if we look down at the top, we see that it's a little bit overlapping. So we will say select the models, and we will try moving it slightly. Yay! Oh no, that isn't what I wanted. I didn't want to. I'll say undo. What I want to do, I don't want to scale this thing. I want to move it. Okay. Well, anyway, you can see that this is not terribly trivial. Undo. Okay, that's kind of looking like it's going to fit. Let's click on slice. Still unable to slice. Don't quite know exactly. I don't exactly know what is completely wrong. Let's try one last thing here. Let's say select a model and let's scale it, and let's say that we want to scale it to 80%. And if we hit enter, there. Okay, we shrunk our thing. I think it will now slice. Okay, now it fits, and we're not drastically concerned about the exact dimensions of what we're making. And you can see that it thinks it's going to take 15 hours to print this thing, which is a mighty long time. And obviously, nobody would use a 3D printer for 15 hours to make a bowl that you could buy, at a secondhand store for 50 cents. But anyway, that's what we've got. If we hit preview and look at we can kind of zoom in, and we will see that we will have some support materials created here. And if we if we look at it at this level, you can see the fact that it's going to be an interior mesh. And if we say to run the animation, you can see that it's what it's doing right now is it's making some support, and that's material that will break away, and we need that to handle the fact that we're creating an overhanging object. And if we didn't have support, it would just kind of turn into a big puddle of glop, because it's not really possible to make a real steep overhang with a 3D printer. And this is kind of an interesting animation to watch, but it doesn't tell us all that much. So we will hit escape or hit the pause button and say that's all we're kind of concerned with as far as showing Cura in the print process. Okay, here we are back in the slides. We saw how to use Cura, and we saw that sometimes Cura has some difficulties, and we kind of showed a way of getting around one of those difficulties by positioning the object correctly, and then using the shrink command to make it fit within the build envelope. So that's all we're going to talk about as far as the printing technique. So most of what we talked about so far has been for 3D printing. So this is additive manufacturing. It's also called fused deposition modeling when you're doing 3D printing using plastic filament. But if you're trying to actually make a bowl that is out of metal, which is what you probably want if you're trying to create a singing bowl, you will probably need to use something other than a 3D printer. And Fusion is also capable of driving tools such as a CNC milling machine. It might also be able to drive a lathe. And so this is what you need to make metal objects. So to summarize our whole video, we showed a number of different ways to create a bowl-shaped object using Fusion. We showed an example of sequence of operations for slicing and transferring the G-code files. Actually, we didn't show the G-code files, but I'm going to assume that you know how to do that. And we talked about some alternative build methods, such as a CNC router and lathe. So I hope this video has been useful. This is Eric Larson signing off from Silicon Valley. Thank you.